As the Money Burns is an original podcast by Nikki Woodard. Based on historical research, this is a deep exploration into what happened to a set of actual heirs and heiresses to some of America's most famous fortunes when the Great Depression hits. Each episode has 3 primary sections. Section 1 is a narrative story. Section 2 goes deeper into the historical facts. Section 3 focuses on contemporary, emotional, and personal connections. Story recap. While Jakey Astor tries to choose among a new set of debutantes, 2 Mdivani marriages are imploding. Now back to As the Money Burns. Cast off. Marrying in haste is easy, but divorces can be oh so much trickier. 2 complicated marriages finally dissolve in the courtroom. Section 1. Story. Love can be oh so grand until it isn't. Then it can fall apart oh so horribly wrong. Nothing ever can be so straightforward, especially in matters of the heart. And even more so when it comes to divorce. Previously, both opera singer Mary McCormick and actress singer-dancer Mae Murray have filed for divorce from their husbands, the infamous royal brothers, Russians via the Georgian province, Prince Sergei Mdivani and Prince David Mdivani. Sergei and Mary are having a very public divorce with each hurling insults at each other. He calls her a gold digger, and she calls him a gigolo. Meanwhile, as they make their claims, they call in for proof from both David and Mae. Amidst the very public antics of Sergei and Mary, Mae and David are on their 3rd attempt to get a divorce. Only both Mdivani couples are not the only cases making the news. In addition, several lawsuits are in action over the Pacific Shores Oil Company, which the brothers run and is rumored to be making a profit, but not nearly enough for all that is happening. Both Mae, Mary, and other creditors are suing for money. Furthermore, Mae finds herself in another lawsuit due to unpaid debts, along with back then future and now former sister-in-law Pola Negri and Valentino. The Mdivani Murray wedding had a few notable attendees. Alas, one former bridal party member, Elizabeth Betsy Stack, loans Mae $49,000, date undetermined, so roughly $919,000 to possibly $1 million in 2025. This loan is to assist during a low financial period and whereby one particular property was used as collateral. Only Mae never paid Betsy back, and now Betsy is suing to recoup her money and is trying to prevent a divorce settlement where Mae might forfeit the property to David. Later, Mae sues Betsy to clear the title and accuses Betsy of usury, claiming Betsy charged 20 or 30% interest, depending on the source, while the legal rate was 12%. The ladies' friendship effectively ends. As the divorces get nastier, freedom is just on the horizon. Or is it? Could this time finally be the charm? And for whom? It seems the Mdivanis are not the only ones in court. Thursday, October 4th, 1933. In Maryland's Baltimore court, a lunacy petition is filed against former Washington Post owner and sportsman Edward McLean. The wayward husband of Hope Diamond owner Evalyn Walsh McLean had previously made several attempts to divorce her abroad in Mexico and later Latvia. Evalyn successfully blocked the Mexican attempt by filing in time to preserve their divorce proceeding in America. Edward gained a divorce in 1932 via Latvia. However, the U.S. courts still consider them legally bound. Between the 2 international attempts, Edward claimed he had married his mistress, Rose Duras, the sister of rival William Randolph Hearst's longtime mistress, Marion Davies. This summer, the Washington Post ownership was sold in a bankruptcy auction due to mismanagement and lack of funds. Evalyn attempted to save the newspaper for their children, but was outbid by another rival. Now in court, Evalyn, along with 2 physicians, Dr. Ross Chapman and Dr. Arthur Petrell, claim Edward is of unsound mind and incapable of governing himself. It is revealed that as of September 18, 1933, Edward has been at the Shepherd and Enoch Pratt Hospital. His remaining estate is estimated at 100,000, about 2.48 million in 2025. Long ago upon their marriage, Edward and Evelyn had once been considered worth 200 million. That would be 6.9 billion in 2025. The court is requested to assign an independent guardian and overseer of McLean and his remaining estate. Evelyn's lawyer for this petition is named Edgar Allan Poe. Meanwhile, over in Los Angeles, Prince David Mdivani submits to the LA Superior Court the notice that he will be representing himself. Formerly, he was represented by the legal firm of Hill, Morgan, and Bledsoe. Mae Murray is requesting a divorce under the grounds of mental cruelty. She too outs several stories claiming controlling behaviors, erratic jealousy, and physical abuse by David, much like those presented in his brother Sergei's divorce. Tuesday, October 24th, 1933. Unrelated and somewhat related to Sergei and Mary's divorce, another court hearing occurs in Athens, Greece. There, the supposed other man in Sergei and Mary's divorce, former energy magnate Silver Fox Sam Insel, appears in a courtroom to say he is out of money and has to count drachma to get postage stamps. The Greek court is trying to determine if Insel should be expedited back to the United States for his embezzlement case. In Los Angeles, a surprise break finally resolves one matter. Only a day prior, Mae and David meet privately and agree to a settlement. Wasting no time, Mae promptly goes to court and files a document signed by David to settle community property and whereby Mae gives up any claim to alimony, despite publicly saying she believes it would be due to her. She will only receive a $5,000 trust fund, nearly $123,000 in 2025, for their 6-year-old son, Coran Mdivani. Mae considers getting her freedom more important than any additional financial settlement. If only Sergei and Mary would settle so amicably. Mae rushes to finalize this divorce. She previously filed in August 1931, only to withdraw within less than a week. The second she filed this June 10, 1933. Now, on her third and final attempt, the motion is granted. David does not appear in court as the judge signs the decree. Mae sighs a breath of relief, having cast off her troublesome husband. When later asked if she will ever get married again, having this been her fourth, Mae optimistically indicates her heart will love again. However, she has more pressing matters to attend for the moment. Upon her 1926 marriage to David, the former actress had an estimated worth of $3 million, a little over $5.4 million in 2025. However, her career dwindled over the years as she took on less work due to David's demands, as well as investing in his oil company. Supposedly, his oil company might be worth more, but recent disputes call that into question. Mae faces several other troubles. As a singer and dancer, her legs were once insured for $250,000, but now dropped to $7,500. In 2025, that would be from $4.6 million down to $185,000. The reason? 5 years earlier, Mae performed at the Brooklyn Fox Theater, and during a dance sequence, steps on a rut and catches her heel, which causes a permanent leg injury. In 1932, she sues, and the jury awards her $30,000 in compensation. In other words, $702,500 in 2025. When the theater appeals, the award is dropped to $7,500 with an additional $177.70 for filing costs. Or today, $185,000 reward with $4,385 for fees. How both the divorce and injury settlements impact the dispute with Betsy Stack will unravel soon enough as Mae struggles to rebuild with what little remains of her career. Adjoining the news items related to the McLean and Mdivani situations, another famous couple, Charles Lindbergh and his wife Anne Moore Lindbergh, are constantly reported on their whereabouts, now seen in Scotland on their way to Paris, though the famous obsession has more to do with the morbid fascination with their tragedy. Despite all efforts, the most infamous kidnapping case remains unsolved. The culprit in the Lindbergh baby kidnapping has not been found. Still, newspapers and the public glom on to any new detail that might lead to solving the mystery. This determined effort gets a bit frenzied as several potential leads emerge as the special bills used in the ransom exchange by John Japsy Condon with Cemetery John have entered into circulation, and thus, with that, a witch hunt of sorts. Now, another suspect hits the papers. A 37-year-old wrestler, as well as racketeer and ex-convict John Gorch, is being held on $10,000 bail, $246,800 in 2025, in Boston and New York after his apartment was searched and several bills are found. Gorch used to live in Hopewell, New Jersey, as well as a New York neighborhood where another bill had surfaced. Gorch has been a suspect for at least 9 months, but Condon claims the actual ransomer was slimmer and more muscular. Only a month earlier, on September 27, 1933, another related recovery participant, Reverend Francis Herney, dies at age 47. The Reverend was to aid as an intermediary to interact with kidnappers in the recovery attempt of the baby by Evalyn Walsh McLean and Gaston Means. Monday, October 30th, 1933. In Youngstown, Ohio, another Lindbergh suspect, Otto Hawk, is in trouble once again. Previously, Hawk had fallen under suspicion by Baltimore neighbors who thought Hawk's own infant resembled too closely the Lindbergh baby. While Hawk is cleared from the Lindbergh kidnapping, he, however, is soon recognized in a separate investigation into another scam under the name Arthur Young in relation to some fraudulent pottery from Mexico and sent to Texas for that charge. Now, in 1933, Hawk is arrested and returns to Ohio for a 10-year-old case where Hawk swindled $120,000, today $2.25 million, from residents in a real estate embezzlement scam. Back in Baltimore, Maryland, after several psychiatrists give their testimony in a mental competency hearing, 20 jurors signed the proclamation declaring Edward McLean officially insane. From his remaining estate of $5 million and $50,000 in property, a trust has been set up with a weekly income of $666. That would be the 2025 equivalent of a $123 million estate, a $1.23 million in property, and $16,400 in weekly income. The petition is not contested by Edward's lawyers. With the insanity plea, the McLean divorce is indefinitely halted. Evalyn was not present in court today. The following day, Tuesday, October 31st, 1933, Lindbergh is seen wearing a cap in Paris, and at their hotel, 100 fan letters arrive every day. After her divorce, Mae, with custody of Corinne, continues to struggle. No longer able to make further payments on their pink castle, their Playa del Rey home, Mae and Corinne will soon begin a rather long period of constant movement as Mae tries to rebuild her flailing career. To be honest, it is not flailing. It is gone. Her star faded without her realizing it. An actress now in her mid to late 40s and without an updated view of potential and appropriate roles, Mae seems unaware that her former supporting actors from her most successful film, 1925's Merry Widow, then unnamed Joan Crawford and Clark Gable, are now the big stars. Mae will forever be lost and adrift. Meanwhile, on November 21st, 1933, Evalyn will take out another $300,000 loan, $7.24 million in 2025, from the Bricklayers, Masons, and Plasterers International Union. For collateral, she offers a very prominent business block in Washington, D.C. Part of this loan is used to pay off her remaining balance due to the Metropolitan National Bank in relation to her loan for the Lindbergh ransom money that was swindled by Gaston. Cursed, unlucky in love, and pending financial ruin can all happen whether there is a fortune or not. Does it really matter which one comes first or last, especially when everything falls apart somewhat simultaneously? Section 2, History and Historiography. Didn't I warn you that our story is very, very entangled? Yes, I take great pains making sure to keep in mind everything that is happening concurrently, especially if it hints at the past or even better, future events. I mean, would you have ever thought the Hope Diamond, the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, and the illustrious Mae Murray's might be linked, though somewhat circuitously? But they are, and this won't be the last revelation. I uncovered even more while tracking down the details for this episode. Like while at the asylum, Edward McLean is said to have danced the hokey pokey with fellow inmates. Zelda Fitzgerald, though I don't know when that might have occurred. Now, part of my journey this tale was merely to suss out what form of mental illness might be in question. For the time being, no such luck on my part. So far, the sources do not fully disclose Edward McLean's illness or any symptoms of problematic behaviors, other than spending sprees, alcoholism, and women. Some reports then and later allude to his troubles as part of the Hope Diamond curse, especially in relation to this particular family. Though one article points out that Edward was always a bit problematic and that he himself may have been more of a curse than the Hope Diamond ever was. The more socially prominent Edward McLean, also nicknamed Ned, first meets Evelyn shortly after her father actually struck gold and her family relocated to Washington, D.C. The youngsters meet in dance class when he is 8 and she 11. Edward proposes to her multiple times, and she initially refuses due to his heavy drinking. In 1908, Evelyn finally says yes, and they elope in Colorado. His parents then give them $200,000. That's 6.9 million today for a European honeymoon, despite which the young couple are broke by the end and cannot pay their hotel bill in Paris. The couple first see the Hope Diamond in 1910 Paris and later will purchase it in 1911 at the Washington Post headquarters for, according to various accounts, for the amount of $154,000 or $160,000 or possibly $300,000. That ranges as $5.2 million or $6 million or possibly $10 million for 2025. Cartier even then warned about the curse, more likely as a sales tactic. Edward soon loses his mother, then Evelyn's father will die a year later, and Evelyn herself will lapse into a morphine addiction in her grief. At 22, Edward takes over the Washington Post and changes multiple aspects of the paper into a more reactionary style of reporting and juvenile in nature. Edward had several odd pets, a trained seal which he gave daily a fifth of whiskey, and once brought a trained bear to a Florida brothel where 2 women are mauled. The couple have 2 homes, one of which they loan to U.S. Attorney General Harry Doherty. Nicknamed the Love Nest, one night Edward brings over some prostitutes, a fight breaks out, and a female dies after being struck in the head by a bottle. Evelyn had hoped President Harding would be a good influence on Edward. Instead, Edward was part of the corruption. Edward will be implicated in the Teapot Dome scandal after Edward falsely claims he loaned money to the Interior Secretary Albert Fall. In an effort to cover the bribes the latter is accused of taking for naval leases from Harry Sinclair for the Teapot Dome oil fields in Wyoming and from Edward Doheny for the Elk Hills reserves in California circa 1921 to 1922-ish era. Edward was, however, broke and unable to be so helpful. The subsequent court cases will involve Fall as well as oil tycoons Edward Doheny and Harry Sinclair along with Doherty. The situation also involves none other than Gaston Means, the man who swindled Evelyn out of $100,000 to recover the Lindbergh baby. According to Evelyn, the maverick detective Gaston was targeting Doherty after they had a separate falling out. Later in 1930, Gaston, with a female writer, Mae Dixon Thacker, published a book, The Strange Death of President Hardy, based on Gaston's investigative work. Only a year after publication in 1931, Thacker realizes the book is riddled with falsities and inaccuracies and publishes a retraction in Liberty magazine, the same magazine that featured a series on Mary McCormick during her divorce from Prince Sergei Mdivani. It is through Thacker that Evelyn found herself in contact with Gaston in March 1932 for the Lindbergh baby. Gaston's fraud with Evelyn was motivated by revenge for some earlier unpaid services after the two had a dispute. Gaston is still serving time for that fraud at this point in our story. There are more tragedies in the McLean family to be reserved for future revelations later in our timeline. A non sequitur note, there are a few references to Prince David Mdivani described as a Lochinvar character by press and May herself. Lochinvar is a character in a poem by Walter Scott, where a knight Lochinvar returns to find his love Helen about to marry another man who is considered a laggard or an undesirable partner. Lochinvar woos the bride away from the bad marriage on her wedding day, carrying her off on his horse like a runaway bride, and they go off into the unknown. A Lochinvar character is considered to inspire love, swooning, and clinginess. As we cover many interconnected stories within this series, one recurring thread involves a history of jewels, with the Hope Diamond definitely taking a top spot. I hope you enjoy this update related to another. A collection of magnificent jewels, including the Mdivani Hutton jade necklace and a Duke of Windsor brooch, are on display as part of this special Cartier exhibit at the Victoria and Albert, South Kensington, in London from May 27th to November 16th, 2025. This exhibit will include a special entrance fee and recommends advance booking. Along with this exhibit, there are accompanying online classes and a virtual Zoom live tour for the latter on June 5th, 2025. Links in the notes and transcript. History is more than just a singular event. The past has a strange way of lingering in the present and echoing into the future. Stay tuned for what will be revealed as our series progresses. Section 3: Contemporary and Personal Relevance. As I previously mentioned, every episode presents new names or revives old ones with connections back into our story. I spend considerable time tracking down any new names to flesh out and better detail the story. Sometimes I stumble across information that must be delayed due to other future story relations. Other times it's safe to mention right away. Then there are some things too fun or synchronistic to turn away, even if it just feels rather random or kismet. Or what is that other term for when, once aware of a thing, you then see it everywhere and then you realize it might have been there all along? Frequency illusion or Badar Meinhof might be the terms. You can help decide. As I scour and collect the various related stories, I run across several coinciding lawsuits for Mae Murray. Not sure how to tie them all together. I will sort out once I figure out the concurring Edward McLean insanity case. I have mentioned I have recently discovered a newly published book on the Mdivanis, which I am in the process of reviewing. I need to reassess future story plots and sort out some conflicting facts. However, an Instagram attached to the book has a wonderful collection of photos, and it just so happened to feature a quote by American actor Robert Stack. The quote actually comes from an older source already within my research. To a boy growing up in Paris, the Mdivanis were the most exciting people imaginable, and they treated me like an adopted son. Okay, noted. But I must move on and focus on this episode's story. Now, as I retie the story back together, I flesh out details and try to assess what to reveal in both Evalyn and Mae's timeline. I uncover a few more details. Oh, goody. There are plenty of new revelations that must be saved for the series finale. But lo and behold, what is this? As I run back across the Mae Murray lawsuit to get the details, I see the name Elizabeth Betsy Stack. I look her up, and yes, she is Robert Stack's mother. I dig more, and Robert Stack must be referring to Prince Sergei Mdivani and Pola Negri in Paris, but obviously he has a connection to Prince David Mdivani and Mae Murray as well. For those who might be unaware, Robert Stack is best known as the host and narrator of the long-running American documentary TV series Unsolved Mysteries. I can still remember watching the very first episode, and this series did help solve actual cases much like America's Most Wanted. What a coincidence this tidbit appears in an episode relaying and reconnecting tales of the Mdivanis, the Haute Diamond, and the Lindbergh kidnapping. As it so happens, several producers, writers, and directors from Unsolved Mysteries would also work with me during my time working on documentaries for the History Channel, so that gives me a whole other layer of nostalgia. A completely random, funny, and for me, a delightful coincidence. It always feels good and more personal in what can seem like a rather solitary venture into these past, unknown, and forgotten. Lastly, I can't resist and need to point out that naturally many people want to discuss fortunes with me due to the subject of this podcast, especially whether there is ever a point when one's fortune might be too large to squander. I always quip, no, it is absolutely always possible to lose any fortune of any size. Sorry, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, it's more than possible. And we, the public, might not know until many years after the tipping point when things go bad. With that in mind, and the direct, indirect link to the current Washington Post owner, Amazon's Jeff Bezos has been making more headlines recently in relation to his girlfriend, fiancée, and soon-to-be future second wife, Lauren Sanchez. Would it be possible to foretell any signs of future trouble? Come visit any of the social media for As the Money Burns and give me your opinion and speculation. We will always have an interest in stories about betrayal, which seems to be in endless supply. While it is nice to fall in love, there are plenty more ways to fall out of love. And sometimes a large fortune seems an even bigger curse to love. Our heirs and heiresses have more heartbreak to come. From time to time, I hear from listeners, and I love when they reveal new elements in the story or how things relate to their own lives. With that, I want to mention one documentary series, Searching for the Mikinak, starring Peter Lallier, Troy Hicks, and Dane Bogard. In Minnesota, friends and locals try to track down a massive unknown creature. Meanwhile, a rivalry forms over starkly opposed agendas between who wants to kill it and who wants to save it. 6 episodes, 20 to 30 minutes each. Searching for Mikinak is available via Tubi and YouTube. Links in the notes and transcript. If you enjoy As the Money Burns, then please share, like, and subscribe. Next, we return to As the Money Burns. The freedom of travel and adventure is cut short when one heiress is spotted, and too much attention could threaten her safety. Until then, As the Money Burns is an original podcast written, produced, and voiced by Nikki Woodard based on historical research. Archival music has been provided by Past Perfect Vintage Music. Check out their website at www.pastperfect.com. Please come visit us at As the Money Burns via GoodPods X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, now Mado, or Instagram. Transcripts, timeline, episode guide, and character bios are available at asthemoneyburns.com.